I wish I had a camera in that room when I had that conversation. When I bribed this this politician. I'm trying to get him elected. We had this blatant, fraudulent conversation. Like once the curtain got pulled back, he was all in. He was like, "Okay, all right, so what are we doing?"
Hey.
No. It's hey everybody. This is shit. See, Yeah, okay.
Me.
So,
I get giddy.
hey everybody, this is Matt Cox, and I'm here with Zach, and today we're gonna do a podcast. We're gonna talk about Victor Lustig.
Ooh.
He's one of the greatest con men out there. He's also
listed as the greatest. I mean,
is he listed?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
He actually created the ambiance, the feel of the legend of con. Like people talk about cons that he's done,
right,
and not even realize
that
who it was that it ever actually happened. They can't believe
that he's the inspiration behind all these different types of cons. Anyway, one of the greatest con men ever. Super interesting guy, and we're just going to kind of go over who he is and talk about his various scams, and that's pretty much it. That's what we're going to do. And if you like the video, do me a favor and see, now I feel like what's his name, where I got to do it perfect or something. I don't have to do it perfect. Okay. So if you like the video, do me a favor and hit the like button.
Yeah.
Subscribe.
Yes.
Hit the bell.
Yes.
Leave a comment.
Yes.
And that's pretty much it. And so we're going to get into it right now.
All right. Victor. Okay. So the pronunciation of his name.
I've heard it pronounced like multiple times. I think it's Lustig. Did I say Lustig?
Yeah, you said Lustig, but it's Lustig.
Lustig.
Okay.
Victor Lustig.
Yes.
That's fine.
All right. He was born in 1890.
Yeah, he was born in Hungary, which is, I don't know what.
Was he born in Hungary or was he born in Hungary?
Stop. I know, bro. This is.
I mean, he was crying. He was crying. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So he was born in Hungary, and here's the thing. There's I watched one video where they were like, he was basically born to in a poor family. You watch another one, they say in a middle class. But what he told everybody he would meet was that his father was like the mayor of the town. So he was born in a rich family. Although this is the thing about him is they said he seemed like he came from money.
Right.
Like it wasn't like he was, he had a bad grammar or anything. He seemed educated and it seemed like he was from the upper crust. But the thing is, I've met guys that were born, they're born and raised in the projects, and yet they speak super well. They're articulate. It's just a matter of study and how you want to present yourself. And so he was so he was able to kind of live in that world,
right.
And anyway, what happened was he was born, went to school, apparently was a gambler in his early age, or early upbringing, and loved messing around with women, which who doesn't. But apparently at one point, because if you see the picture of him, which you could put up a picture, Colby, you could put up a picture of him if you
right,
because there's lots of, he's got a scar on his face. He actually started messing around with another guy's girl, and this was some serious shit back then.
Right.
And some dude beat his ass and cut him with a knife.
Well, you got to keep in mind that a scar can you can give 1,000 stories for a scar.
Oh, that's true.
So when you're dealing with that, whatever seems the most exciting, and sometimes when you're running a con, you get to make up your own background.
Right. Well, when anybody ever asks me about this scar, that scar right here.
Yeah.
I always tell them, I always just look at them and I go, prison basketball game. And they're like, wow, I'm like, bro, it's not, it ain't no joke.
And they had no idea you were just the ball boy. Just
go
get that, and you tripped. But
this scar here, or what I always love. What I'll tell people. So I say prison basketball game, right. And then they see the scar, but you know the scar is it is a chickenpox scar, and
I
had it. It was a big brown scar, and I went to the doctor and I had it removed. I have a thin scar there, but that's no good. I like that.
Absolutely. I mean, that even sounds pampered. But
or I go with it was the 2008 riot at Coleman. I think it was remember my name showed up in the art. There's an article that comes out.
Yeah, it says that you're there.
That I'm there, and who was the other guy? What was the guy? The newspaper.
But he was at
guy?
the Low. Wasn't that guy at the Low?
Yeah, I wasn't at the Pen. I was in the Medium.
You were in the Medium, but the other guy they mentioned was at the Low.
Neither guy. Like they mentioned me, and they mentioned Black. What was the name? The guy that owned all the.
Not Blackwell.
No, his last name was like. He owned all the newspapers. So he owned a bunch of newspapers. He was at Coleman.
He was a billionaire.
Yeah, he was a billionaire. He's at Coleman. I'm at Coleman. He's at the Low. I'm at the Conrad Black.
Conrad Black.
So Conrad Black is at the Low. I'm at the Medium. They talk about a riot at the Pen where guys are stabbed. An inmate was shot. Multiple
from
people
from the tower and everything.
Yeah, we could hear the helicopters going. But you read the article, it sounds like I was in it. I was in but they're like, we're not sure where Mr. Cox was located during the riot. I was
under the bunk.
Under the bunk in the Medium in another institution. Like, I'm nowhere near this place.
Right.
They would have to escape their prison and break into my prison to get close to me. So, but, so sometimes I'll go, prison riot. You can look it up, and then you look up the article. Yeah, look, right. Man, bro, that's enough. I'm just joking. I wasn't actually there. I wasn't there, but still, right? Like, I could pull that off.
So obviously, his scar is going to be some fantastic. It's not going to be some like
knife fight.
Yeah.
He throws in knife fight. Truth is, he probably just fell down.
He tripped and fell.
Yeah. Well, I was running through the hallways at school. Somebody tripped me, and I fell down. Stupid.
But that's the benefit of the con. You create the most fantastical story just for the reaction. It's for the reaction. Like, yeah,
you could be extremely look. You could always say, well, my father was very abusive, and they're like, oh God, and their heart goes out to you. They want to help you.
Yes. You want the react, and you judge it off the best reaction. Like you tell somebody one story, and they're kind of like. You're like, okay, I won't use that again.
Yeah, I'll tweak it. And next time I tweak it, and I tweak it, and I tweak it.
That's right.
All right. So old Victor, young Victor had some issues, but what he did was he realized that he worked for a little bit, wasn't a fan, decided working wasn't for him. So then he decided, he was gambling, and then he ran a few cons, but apparently he ran some cons and they didn't he's not making a lot of money.
Right.
And so he thought, what I need to do? I need to go to a place where people have money. And that was the cruise liners, right? So these huge cruise ships that go between Europe and the United States have tons of people with money on them. So he ends up getting himself a ticket. And when his first con, the one that he ran for years on the cruise liners, was that he was a producer of what is it, Broadway musicals,
right?
And he was looking for investors, and so these people, he would get them to invest in Broadway musicals. What's funny about that is, did you ever see the musical The Producers?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the whole premise is
Mel Brooks.
These guys invest a bunch of money. Then it flops, but they get to pay themselves. Like they skim the whole way through. They can show you where all your money was lost. Like there's no money, and it was a flop. So they pay themselves. So I'm saying he ends up getting investors to invest into these Broadway musicals, which of course never occur.
Right.
And here's what's interesting is I'm gonna scam you, get 10, 20, 30 grand from you.
Right.
And then hang out with you for the next 6 days. That's complete psychopath. You know what I'm saying? You would think that the guilt would if it doesn't bother you at all to be hanging out with this guy for the next 6 days.
But that's the sell. That's
right. And then you hang out with him. And then of course he gets to tell all of his stories.
Absolutely, get to test everything out. You get that's when you perfect it. But that's the sell. The sell is not always before the exchange. Sometimes it's after the exchange Just
make them
the
feel
law.
good about it.
Yes, that's right. The law.
The problem with any type of selling of any kind is, there's always buyer's remorse. Like sometimes a couple days later, they're like,
well, and that's
assuming they give him cash. Like if they just give him a check or something, then then he's got to get off the boat, go get the check or whatever.
Right. Well, and the sell is important because you might realize, because sometimes there's a time frame. Like when you're thinking it up, you're like, okay, I'm going to need at least 3 weeks after. So you might have to do some prepping because like he might come to realization of something, and I need to be there to buffer that so that I can get away completely clean.
Well, I mean, if if you're a decent con man, which you'll see this guy is,
yes,
he obviously has all of that in place.
Absolutely.
Right. Like
the planning.
Right. Like when I'm convincing the bank to give me $200,000, like anything I give you, you can check.
Right.
You can look up, you can call the bank, you can call my you call on the W-2s and the pay stubs, you can check this, you can call that person, you can check, like I've got all of it. You're not going to catch me by double checking my stuff. So for him, I'm sure he had a company set up, or at least you have some woman in a room answering the phone. Like I have an HQ, I have I have all these answering services, I have the websites, like. Right. So I'm sure he had all that taken care of. I mean, if you're making that kind of money, you can't be sloppy. I hate it when I hear some con man who he got caught because, like that guy Chris Arlington, and he was running a huge credit card counterfeiting scam, and his whole thing comes undone because when he goes to buy the room, he uses a fake credit card.
Right, instead of using real money.
Right, it gets declined. Or use your real credit card. Chris, you're making a couple $1 million a year.
But you think at that point you're thinking there's no catching. Like I'm so far ahead.
You're invincible.
Yes.
He thinks he has it down. Well, then he goes downstairs. They call him and say, "Hey, your room, the card was declined." He goes downstairs, uses another fake credit card, declined. Another one, declined. Then he uses one that goes through. He goes, "Okay, we're good. Yeah, great." He goes upstairs. Well, the clerk's like, "Okay, now this is 3 in a row." The guy pulled out a stack of credit cards. No, he calls and says, "Hey." And when of course the bank's like calls their people, the actual card holder, they're like, "I'm not in LA." And then the guy comes back. I'm looking at you. I shouldn't be looking. Okay. Then the guy comes back, or then the guy hears that. He calls the police. The police come in when they walk into Chris's room. He's got counterfeiting and credit cards everywhere.
Yes, it's insane.
Your whole thing came undone. And this is his third arrest, by the way. He ends up being in LA your third strike, life. I don't think he got life. I think he did get something ridiculous like 20 years. I don't know exactly, but because luckily in LA it's still up to the judge.
Right. Well, that's not the Lustig type of con man. That's not fully. That's what I was saying about the
that's
cell.
Stupidity.
Right.
I'm saying that's stupidity. This guy doesn't have that
staying
issue.
around to make sure buffer. That's just kind of like, hey, I'm getting away with this. Right. So there's not a whole lot of planning in that. That type of con is happening off the cuff. That's not like planned out.
That's just a short con. That's a short con. It's just some idiot who's got to. As soon as the money's in his hand, he practically has to run.
Yes. This is you're talking about somebody that's given a lot of thought and heart into it.
Oh, and listen, he's dressed the part. He talks the part. He's got a story down, and he does this for years and years and years.
Perfection.
So here's the thing: when World War I starts, all these cruise lines start going out of business because people aren't
traveling in battlefield waters.
Yeah, they're not interested in being on a ship that could be sunk.
Right.
So they say, we're done with that. So
for a while. Like, after the war, we're going, honey.
Right. He moves his operation to what? To New York. Is it New York or just the LA? Just LA. Or just the United States.
The United States.
The United States in general. Yeah. Well, when he goes to the United States, he switches up the scam to the box.
The Romanian
Box. The Romanian Box,
yes,
right.
Yes.
Oh, no. First what he does is he's a sleight of hand artist where he'll be doing something over here while he moves something to the side. He's good with his hands. So one of the things he does, and I watched several things on this, and I read an article on it. It never specifies exactly what he does. What he actually, the only thing you can really get out of this is he goes into a bank, which I love taking money from banks. So he goes into the bank, and he provides them security bonds backed by real estate. So apparently there's some real estate that's been taken back, it's been foreclosed on, or it's real estate that needs to be foreclosed on, whatever. It's a bond that's connected to real estate.
Right.
And he convinces the bank to lend him, how much do they lend him? I forget. It never really says, does it?
Yeah, I think on the deal it was like I don't want to say because you got 70,000. That's
that's different. That's different.
It was tens of thousands.
Yeah,
but this is back in the 20s.
It doesn't matter if it's 20,000. That's like $300,000 today. So let's say
or 3 million.
Yeah, let's say 20,000. So he goes in. They give him $20,000 for these bonds, and then he gets the money, and he actually through sleight of hand walks out with the bonds also
and the money. Yes,
and the money.
Yes.
You can imagine, like, these are scams that they know about.
Yeah, I remember because they said he presented a secure box. Back then, everything came in a secure box. So he had a secure box where he had a separate flap. So when he opened them and showed them the bonds in the box, he closed the box, slid the bonds out, gave them the box. They gave him his box with the money, and he actually left with the bonds and
the money
and the money.
Right.
Just so they would never know the bonds were fake. It's just. That's actually a bank robbery. That's
okay, so that's one. After that, he moved to
the Romanian Box.
The Romanian Box.
Yes, which is a dream.
Right, which is it's funny because I've read books about con men where they talk about the Romanian Box.
Right.
And they talk about, like, the newspaper articles talk about, like, there's one newspaper article, like, this is how naive the just in general people were to cons, where the actual newspaper article, the guy that wrote it, the journalist actually says, what was ridiculous about the scam is that
no mechanical.
No, it was that he was saying that had Victor simply used the box himself, he would have been able to make the money himself.
Oh,
and it was like
they're going on the logic,
right? They're it's like, are you sick? You don't really think the box works? Like the newspaper. If you read old newspaper articles, you realize just how insane they are. They're just completely naive, and it's the same thing. The original con man is a guy that walked around the city of New York and would bump into. He was dressed nice. He would bump into people. And he would say, hey, he would act like he knew them.
Right.
And he would give some very general information, and then he would convince them to give him their watch. Well, watches back then, even cheap watches were like let's say in today's dollar, they were like $1,500 to a couple $1,000s for a watch. A watch it's like asking for your cell phone.
Same with shoes, but go ahead.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're saying, hey, so he would convince you, one, that we knew each other. Two, yeah, you work here. Oh, okay. I have an issue because I have a bunch of meetings, but my watch doesn't work. Can I borrow your watch and I'll come back here at 5 o'clock and give you your watch back? And he kept saying, you have confidence in me, right? You have confidence that I'll do that. Like, we're friends. You're confident that in my ability, in our friendship, right? What's the guy's going to say? No, I don't know. I don't really remember you. He's like, look, after the conversation, he believes that he's got the mark convinced that they know each other.
Right.
They've been to parties together. And so the mark hands him his watch, and he leaves. He would get like 10, 15 people a day. And the whole thing, he continued, everybody said the same thing. He kept saying confidence, like, you're confident that I'll bring your watch back, right? So he became known as a confidence man, and it eventually became a con man, because in newspapers back then, it was the typeset. You had to put the actual letters in the newspaper for them to print it. So somebody had to sit there, and he didn't want to spell it confidence. So they'd say confidence, and then throughout the rest of the article, they'd say con. So confidence man became con man, and then it's con man stuck. Anyway, I don't know about you. I couldn't walk in the mall right now and get somebody to give me their cell phone for the day.
Yeah. For one call. Can I make a call? Like,
I don't know. I don't feel good about that.
Look like you can run pretty fast. I don't know.
But back then, that's what I mean. It's just ridiculous. So people are believing anything.
Yes, and believe it or not, that's still true today. Like I've heard stories where I'm like, come on, man, nobody would fall for that, and they're like, oh my god.
Yeah, but the difference is, if you talk about phone scams, you've got to call 100 people before you get one person who's unaware of the scam, and then they might fall for it. But it's way more harder now than it was back then.
I disagree. I only disagree because you hear about so many scams. Like there's warnings.
But that's
If you had ever used Cash App and you send money to somebody new, they will tell you, "Are you sure you know this person?" before you actually send it, because people get scammed all the time. They warn you at Western Union, you're not sending money to somebody you don't know, do you?
Right.
Because they want to tell you, listen, you don't know this person, don't send. The average. It's unbelievable what people will believe that comes out of someone's mouth. At least back then it was face to face. Now it's on the phone.
Right.
You know,
but
people
I'm saying
call
also
up, hey,
your ability to hit multiple people throughout the entire planet is way easier now, and you hear people are way more informed now than they ever were.
Yes, and you'd still be scared.
So
you'd still be scared.
So
the Romanian Box, if we can talk about.
Oh yeah, talk about the Romanian Box. I thought go ahead. I didn't even realize we didn't even talk about it.
Well, it was an invention where he made this box, and he would tell someone that it would counterfeit $100 bill. Right. Which I'm surprised it's not a $500, because $500 and $1,000 notes existed. $10,000 notes existed back then. So he would tell him, I guess it was $100 bill is what they said. I think they say that because that's the only thing. But anyway, and he'd say it would reproduce a counterfeit $100 bill, but it would take 6 hours to do so.
So he has this. By the way, you can find the wooden boxes. Like they have pictures of the wooden boxes online.
It wasn't even a mechanical. It didn't even have moving parts.
This is back in like the 20s. And
I know, 30s, but I mean, so I have a box that has no moving parts.
No, they said it said it had gears in it. Like I watched one thing, they said it had gears in it. Like it had a bunch of junk in it. Like it looked like it should do something, but it didn't. So you slipped he would get a real $100 bill and he'd slip it into the box. Like you put it in a groove and you twist it and it takes the thing. So he would show him the gears and then he'd close it. And he'd show him the chemicals and he'd be like, look, here's how it works. And he'd explain how it works. And if you don't know anything, it probably sounded good if you were from the 1920s. He would twist the bill into it. And then he'd say, we have to wait. He hangs out with you because he's like, I'm not going to leave the box here. And I'm not going to leave. We're going to have to wait. So we wait 6 hours. We get to know each other.
A little beer, wine.
When he's done, he then says, okay, it's been 6 hours. You know, then he twists the next knob and a bill comes out, right? And he keeps twisting it and a second bill comes out. So I've got my counterfeit and my
real bill.
My real bill.
But he had 2 bills in there, and he'd make sure he matches up to them. Yeah, make sure the numbers will match. Yeah.
Right. So then he'd say, hey, now this is the counterfeit one. Let's go to the bank.
And deposit it.
Well, no, just give it to and they would walk into the one stuff I read said he would go to a clerk and say, look, I want to make sure this is a genuine $100 bill. And the clerk would look at it and they'd turn it over and they'd show somebody how. They go, absolutely, that's genuine. They'd give it to him and he'd leave. Of course it was genuine. It was a real bill.
Yes.
It's not a counterfeit bill. So then the guy would come back. He was selling these boxes for $10,000. So now even if you don't have $10,000, you go to your friends and your family and you get money and everything. You come back and you give him the money and he leaves. What is it? What the heck's? Who falls for that? But it's the same thing with like a biz op scam.
Right.
So if you have a biz op, like I'm selling this business opportunity, and the thing is like, yeah, but if it was such a great business opportunity, why aren't you doing it?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you're selling them, why aren't you doing it?
Right.
So you're telling me if I give you $50,000, you're telling me I'm going to be making $5,000 a month. In 10 months, I get my return back, and the opportunities are always too good to be true. It's like you could go to the bank and get the money for this. You could do this,
right?
But people fall for them.
Yes.
Their website's dedicated to it.
Yeah,
it happens all the time.
They believe that you don't have enough time. I don't have time.
Oh yeah. I know all the excuses. I don't have the time. I don't have the manpower. I don't have the this. It would take too long to generate. But I can sell these very quickly.
Yes. This is an opportunity for me. I'm going to sacrifice this so I can get something else.
Right. And I make money every time you do it. I make money. So it's a benefit when you start selling all these whatever you're selling.
Right.
I make a couple cents off each one, but I make a ton of money off of that.
Yeah.
You're never selling all of them. So
and that works. That con does work.
Right. So, but the Romanian Box, he does this con for a while. Like he's selling these boxes over, and all he's got to do is get a box made. How hard is that? I just got to
put them in mass production.
Right. So you sell one box a week at $10,000 back then.
Yes.
This guy's making a ton of money.
Nothing but money.
And okay, so the next one we're going to go over is
this is the classic.
Yeah, this is the one that made him like a legend.
Yes, this morphed into other big
big
items.
Oh, if you like that,
Brooklyn
I'll sell
Bridge.
you. Right, I'll sell you. I'll sell you some land in the Everglades.
Right.
And they're like, there's all these scams that derive from this.
Right. People just have the concept of this scam.
Right.
They don't know the skill and the vulnerability, like how he exploited a distinct vulnerability, how he actually targeted a group that would make this work. Right. Because who would buy a landmark?
Right. So the Eiffel Tower was put up during the World Fair in, I don't know when it was, 1890 or something. It was only supposed to stay up for like 10 or 15 years.
Right.
Well, it ended up, it became kind of a landmark. People hated it when it was first put up, by the way. Like the whole, like Paris was like,
what is that?
Like, it's horrible. But it's been there for 10, 15 years. They start to go, okay, we went up in it. You can see the whole city. People come here for that. They're making little statues of it. Like, okay, it's become a thing.
Right.
So, but after, 10, 15 years after it was supposed to be taken down, it's now in disrepair. It's rusting. The city's having to keep it up. And there are articles talking about how there's kind of a debate, like, should we tear it down?
Right.
Well, he sees these articles, and what he decides is how would they tear it? Like, yeah, how would they tear it down? What would they do this? What? And then he starts thinking, you know what? They would sell it for scrap. They haven't made a decision, but if I come up with a letter on letterhead, so he comes up with a letter on letterhead stating that he is the deputy. I have it written down here. He's the deputy director general of the Post and Telegraph Department,
right?
For the city of Paris. He then sends out these letters to all the scrap metal dealers, like the top 7 or 8 of them. Tells them it's all in confidence. They need to meet at this one area. You have to think back then. This is how you did it. You wrote a letter. You told someone to be here. They show up or they don't. They write a letter back. These things take weeks and weeks. But 7 or 8 of these guys show up at a meeting.
Right.
And how hard would it be to have them to rent an office building where they show up? You don't know what's government, what's not. They could show up in an HQ. You have a secretary there. She's like, oh, yeah, the deputy director. Like, if you've ever had an HQ, you can have people show up in an HQ. You can rent a room. You can rent a conference room.
Yep.
They'll answer your phones. They'll put your name on the marquee, they'll put your name. So when you walk in, your name will be right along everybody. A bunch of legitimate businesses that are there. You talk to the secretary. Hi, I'm so and so. I'm here to meet with Mr. Cox. And they go, are you Mr. So and so? Yes. Hold on. Have a seat. I'll go get Mr. Cox. You can be sitting in a rented room. She'll get you. You have no idea. This is not my secretary. This is a rental.
Yeah.
All of this is rented.
Yes.
You can rent a room. You can rent the conference room. And so you come out, you say, hey, John, what's going on? Hey, how are you? Yeah, I'm the deputy director. Come on back in the conference room. You go back in the conference room. Marcy, the secretary, comes in. She goes, oh, hi, Mr. Johnson. Would you like some coffee with Mr. Cox? Yeah, go ahead. I'd like some coffee. And do you need anything? I mean, look, so people are like, oh, this is his place.
Right.
This is his. So these guys show up at a location. There's 8 of them. He's got pictures of the Eiffel Tower. He's got brochures. He's got letters. This is clearly his office, and he has a whole plan laid out where he's explaining, look, I need to take bids from you guys. We're tearing the Eiffel Tower down.
Right.
This is complete confidence. Like, if it was me, I'd have them all sign a confidentiality agreement. Can't talk about what happened in this meeting. So they're like, okay, what is it? We don't want the public to know, but we're going to sell this thing because we don't want a huge debate. We don't want the public to know.
Which is awesome because that's targeting your audience.
Perfect.
I know.
It's perfect.
It's like anything else would be, and the fact that he's asking for secrecy is kind of like, don't let anybody know because I don't want any official finding out about it.
Right, but
you know what I'm saying?
What's great is it makes sense. Yes. It makes sense why we don't want, because we don't want the public to be outraged.
That's right.
We don't want to debate. We just want it sold, done.
Yes.
They'll figure it out when you start taking the beams down.
Yes, it works on the con and it works legitimately. It's beautifully put together.
Right.
Beautifully.
So they come in. They all have a conversation. He has a whole plan laid out. They explain what's going on. He tells them, you're going to have to take down the Eiffel Tower and you're going to have to dispose of all of it. And you're bidding. So you're going to pay because you're going to make your money back on the scrap, but you also have to take it down. So they're like, it makes sense.
Scrap metal.
Right. So he has this huge conversation.
Good scrap metal. The Eiffel Tower is made of good
Back then, it was
the older the metal, the more
the better.
Yes,
just like when I wrote the book for Ephraim for Deveroli, like the bullets he was selling were more powerful and of better metal grade than the stuff that was coming off the lines now because they were 40 years old.
Right.
So, anyway, this ends up what ends up happening is he ends up figuring out one of the guys is super anxious to do this. So he goes to that guy and he says, look, I'm just a public official. That's the other great thing about it is that this works because you're not paying me. Like, I'm just a public official. Like, I don't care which one of you guys get. Just put your bids in. You have 2 weeks to put in a bid, whatever he's talking to him. But one of the guys, he kind of targets as his mark and he goes to him and he explains, look, it's a lot of money to be made here. I don't make very much money in my job.
Right.
But if you were to give me an incentive, I could make sure you get the contract. And so the guy actually within a few days he gives him $70,000 in cash as a bribe,
milking the greed of others. Yes,
right.
Telling someone, "Hey, cross the line, and I got you."
Right, it's the right thing to do. And what's so funny is like, do you remember? Oh God, what was it? Kevin White, the politician that I bribed.
Oh yes.
It's the same thing. Like I wish I had a camera in that room when I had that conversation. When I bribed this politician. I'm trying to get him elected in my district so he can rezone all my single family vacant lots. And I sat down with him. I'm like, look, so how much do you need? And he's like, well, with 15 grand, I just need that to run these spots and I don't have it. I said, listen, bro, you understand this isn't a gift. Like, I give you 15 grand, you win this thing, you rezone. He's absolutely like we had this blatant fraudulent conversation. Like once the curtain got pulled back, he was all in. He was like, okay, all right. So it was like, he totally went from being this upper crust legit guy to being just this scoundrel.
Like, cover this expense.
Right. He was like, all of a sudden he went from being, to using his, his upper class, proper voice to, all right, so here we are. Like he turned into this villain. So Victor gets this guy to give him $70,000 in cash.
Right. And
he takes off. Now you tell me, if you got ripped off for $70,000 in cash, how do you explain that to the police? Like he worked with another con man. They actually took off. They went to the U.S. and they waited for it to hit the papers because they thought for sure it's going to hit the papers. I just sold the Eiffel Tower. It's going to be in the newspapers.
I just sold the Eiffel Tower.
Nothing. So weeks and weeks go by, months go by, and they're like,
what happened?
So and this is the way I think con men think. Like, if I got you once, like you're prime to be hit again. Like you fell for it. Somebody felt if this scam worked once.
Because the guy that paid is probably the only one. Everybody else don't know what happened.
Right. Nobody knows what happened. He never went. He was too embarrassed. Until Victor comes in and Victor does the whole thing. He finds a whole nother group of.
Right. So, yeah.
So he hit the first tier the first time. Now he's going for the second tier scrap metal guys. He gets all them. They show up. He does the same scam again. Then when he approaches the guy to give him the bribe, that guy. Now here's the problem. You have two different versions of this. One version is he actually goes through with it. The guy pays him.
Right.
And then within hours
coming to get his medal.
He starts thinking something's wrong. Like, yes, he starts to put it to go, just gave this guy money. I showed up at this office. Like, you don't know if he went back to the office and they said, oh, no, that was just a rental. Like, you don't know what happened, but he eventually does go to the government and say, hey, what's going on? Look, I'm doing this. This is legit, right? And they say, absolutely not. We're not doing that. We're not selling the Eiffel Tower. And then he goes straight to the cops and says, look, here's what happened. And he tells them everything that happened. That hit the newspaper. When that hit the newspaper, the other guy comes forward. The first guy comes forward because now he realizes, okay, it's a scam. I'm not so embarrassed. I'm going to come forward. Well, the thing is, there's two different stories. One is that he actually got the money. He got the money. He takes off. But the guy figures it out and goes to the authorities. The second one is that he approaches him with the bribe. The guy says he's going to do it, and he goes straight to the authorities at that point. and he doesn't give him the money. So you don't know if he really got. I've seen multiple accounts. Some say he did it and got away with it, and then they catch him later. Right. Some say he never got the money and they caught him right then. And you have to think, you don't even know how many times this guy's been arrested because he's using multiple. I didn't even list all the different names he's used. He's had like something. I think it was like, you know, it's funny.
The signature of the con man. That's why they list us for aliases, like to say to the judge, this person can't be trusted.
Of course. He's got 50. This guy had, and I want to say, because when they said it, I remember thinking, oh my God, that's the same amount of aliases. They said like it was like 47 different aliases. And that he had like almost the same number I had. And I remember thinking to myself, man, I think that's the same number they said on mine. I was like, wow.
But aliases, here's what's funny. An alias is absolutely legal.
Right.
You can be known by whoever you want to be known by.
Well, it's when you use it in furtherance of a crime that it becomes illegal.
An alias is never illegal.
Okay, go ahead.
Listen, not the debate. If I tell you my name is Jay-Z,
that's
right?
fine.
All right. So you're saying if I go and I commit a crime, I go, hey, give me your wallet. I'm Jay-Z, right? So the alias is illegal. The crime I commit is illegal.
That's what I said. If it's in furtherance of a crime, that's when it becomes kind of it's illegal. He was using an alias, So the alias, right.
So that's what I'm like. Aliases are absolutely legal. They present those to judges to make us look bad. So he has all these different aliases, right? And not to say that he's not a con man, because clearly we're con, right? He's not the same. But that's what they attach all the multiple aliases.
Oh, they always say these. There's always these inflammatory statements that they make. Like when I was in front of the judge, like they were talking about, Mr. Cox had a gun. I didn't have a gun. My girlfriend was ex-military. She had a gun, and that gun had actually been stolen. You didn't even find a gun.
Right.
Like I never had a gun. Like I've never had a gun in my possession when I was on the run. Mr. Cox was on the run with a weapon. I'm looking at my lawyer, and she's going, shh, just don't say anything. Don't say anything.
And here, understand. Here's the point I'm making.
He's had over 50 identities.
My first arrest, I had two aliases. Both aliases were at times when the police stopped me and they thought my middle name was my first name. And I'm like, no, that's not my name. And because they made that mistake, they gave me an alias. So when I'm in court, they're like, this guy has two aliases, Your Honor. That's the whole point I'm making.
Yeah,
they use it in a negative connotation.
No, I know a guy that they brought up the fact that he has three passports, and he's like, the military had issued me one. I had my own one, and then when I changed branches to this other one, he had
another one.
Right, he had one that was issued by like the state. He's had another one that was issued because he was a diplomat. Right. He's like, so I had a diplomat one, I had a U.S. passport one because he was representative of the U.S. He said, and I had my personal one. He's like, they're all my passport. They're all issued in my name. Right. He has two forms of identification. Yeah, I have a driver's license and an ID. Right. What's going on? I have my college ID. How is that? Yes. But they say it and it sounds ominous. Of course, if you're already there, you're fucked.
I mean,
you're already a scumbag.
It's the pile-on.
So Your Honor, she's saying I'm a level 17 scumbag. I'm only a level 15.
Exactly. So it's a pile-on. So yes, he had multiple aliases, or he could have used his real name the whole time.
Right. But they grab him.
Right.
Like they grab him and they put him. I don't know. You know what? In this one. They grab him. He does get arrested. And I think he goes. He takes off. So the second one.
He escaped. You remember?
Well, the escape is after that.
Oh, okay.
So I think he either takes off from trial or he doesn't get caught or he gets caught. He talks his way out of somehow or another. I don't think he does any jail time in this one.
Right. No.
What he actually does is after that, he ends up, the Al Capone one is kind of weird where he actually goes to Al Capone and he says, he goes to Al Capone and he has Al Capone give him like 50 grand and tells him he's got like a swindle. He's doing like a stock swindle or something. Give me 50 grand. And Al Capone gives him $50,000.
That's so risky.
Right. Well, he hands him 50. Well, yeah, first of all, first it's Al Capone, so he's like, I'm not going to rip you off. You guys will hunt me down and find me and kill me, right? It's not like it's now where there's 330 million people in the United States. There's what, 10, 15 million people, and most of that's rural. So it's finding someone in a city isn't that difficult.
Well, anyway, go ahead.
So I'm saying he takes the money. He tells him he's got a scam he's running. Well, he keeps the money for like a month or two. He comes back 2 months later and he gives Al Capone his money back and he says the scam didn't work. It fell through. It's this. I feel so bad. I'm horrible. I lost all my money in the scam. I know I can't not give you your money back. Here's your money. I have nothing. I'm broke. He gives him the sob story and Al Capone gives him, and he convinces Al Capone, can you please give me $5,000 so I can start over? I have nothing. He gives him $5,000 because he's like, Al Capone is so impressed by the fact that he gave him the money back. Like, you could have taken off with the money.
Right.
And you lost all your money, so I feel bad about it. Here's $5,000. Of course, he's thinking he's going to come back and do the scam again. Like, hey, once I get everything arranged, I'll come back. But now he really trusts him, so he gives him $5,000. He takes off. So he rips off Al Capone for $5,000, which is still like $100,000 now.
Right. Al Capone.
Al Capone, yeah.
The killer.
Yeah, that's risky.
A little risky,
yeah.
A little risky.
That's like robbing drug dealers, kind of.
Exactly.
So, and keep in mind, by this point, he's a known con man. I mean, he's like infamous at this point. Wow. So when he shows up to Al Capone's like, it'd be like me showing up talking to you about, look, we're going to do this. You totally believe anything I say. You're like, I can look on the internet. Like, this guy can do anything. This guy, if he says he can do it, he's going to do it.
Right.
You'd believe it. I could get the money.
Right.
So the point. No. Okay. I don't want to think about it.
All right. Don't.
All right. The next one he does is he does the Romanian Box. He starts doing the Romanian Box again. Right. So that's something he's always doing. This is a constant con of his. So he does it
because I think he was perfected. You think he's like, this con is unbelievable.
Right. Right. Well, and what's great is that the person can't, once I get the $10,000 from you, you can't call the cops. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to bring in the box and say, you say, officer, I need to file a report. This guy was supposed to have sold me a counterfeiting device, and now I can't illegally counterfeit this.
I can't counterfeit.
Thought I was counterfeiting U.S. money. I want to be a counterfeiter. He screwed me over. So go find him.
Go get my money back so I can get a counterfeit.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, I understand.
No. It's like the guy who says, hey, I know about these two guys who are robbing banks. How do you know? I'm driving the getaway car.
True.
So, all right. So what he does is, but here's the problem is he sells the Romanian Box to a sheriff.
Right.
So.
Turn that off.
Yeah, I have one. I'm going to turn mine off too. So he sells the Romanian Box to a sheriff, one of his many Romanian Box. He sells it to a sheriff.
Right. The
sheriff is actually bilking the county out of money, and he's going in the hole. So the sheriff's actually in a lot of trouble himself. So he thinks, I'm going to get this box from this shyster, and I'm
make the money I've stolen back.
So that I can, exactly. So I can put that money back in the coffer so I don't end up getting in trouble. So he gives him the money, and then the sheriff gives him like $10,000. He takes off. Well, the sheriff figures out that it's not working, or that it doesn't work the way he says it works, or it doesn't work at all. And he tracks him down in like another city. Like, he tracks him to the other city, gets him, grabs him. Victor actually convinces him that it's absolutely a mistake. And the real story is, by this point he'd actually started counterfeiting himself. He actually hires these two guys, and they start a counterfeiting ring. Wow. And the reason and he actually used one of the counterfeit bills in the box. Instead of giving him $100, being cheap, he ends up using a real counterfeit bill.
I think he gets desperate.
Right. It's something. Well, obviously he's things are going wrong.
Right.
It does. It actually, I've heard that a few times, that towards the end, he's blown through a ton of money. He's got a ton of expenses. He starts getting desperate. People are on to different scams at this point. And anyway, the cop figures out that it's a counterfeit bill, and he realizes, oh wow, this is bad. He tracks him down. Victor convinces him he's using the box wrong. Oh, no, that's when he gives him counterfeit money. He gives him counterfeit money that he's now making and says, here's a bunch of money that I just made using the box. You can have it. And tells him, look, you messed up on the box. You got to do this, you got to do that. And the cop buys it and leaves. He goes to deposit some of that money in the bank. They find out, realize it's counterfeit. They arrest the cop. And that sparks an investigation into Victor. And when he eventually gets grabbed, he's in the middle of he's now counterfeiting money. By the way, they put so much money into circulation. He and these guys, his counterfeiter guys, the bills were so good that they put so much money into circulation that the Secret Service get onto it. So the Secret Service are already investigating this. But somehow or another, the cop got caught trying to pass one of the counterfeit bills because, of course, it becomes known. And sparks an investigation. They track him down. They grab him. He says he didn't do anything wrong. He immediately turns on on the cop. Oh, he turns on and his two accomplices, his two co-defendants. He turns on them immediately. Not that someone would do that because it's wrong. So he cooperates immediately, as most white collar criminals do. So he grabs them, and they grab him. The cops put him on trial. Now in different versions, usually they say he pled guilty and got sentenced, but what really happens, he actually goes to trial. And during the trial, he thinks his co-defendant isn't going to testify. He thinks it's all like the government's not going to. Right. Like they're not going to bring him. He'll never testify. When he gets on the stand and starts testifying, Victor stands up and says, "Guilty. I'm guilty." And he takes the plea. I'll take that plea. I'll take that plea we were talking about. We don't need him anymore. He's afraid. He actually turns out that they were afraid. They believe he was afraid that his co-defendant was going to tell about other scams. Like, oh, that's nothing. He's this, he's doing that. So he's like, guilty. He takes the plea, goes to Alcatraz with Al Capone. So he ends up in Alcatraz. So
Al Capone wasn't in Alcatraz.
Yeah.
I thought he was in Atlanta.
He was all over the place, but he was definitely in Alcatraz too.
I didn't know that was a federal, because Al Capone got federal time.
Alcatraz was federal.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Absolutely. I've been to Alcatraz. I mean, on the tour.
Me too.
Yeah, it's great. Creepy.
Hey, I'm in a cell. Yes. What am I doing here?
Yeah.
Get me out of this.
Listen, I wish I had pictures of me in the cell because, of course, later on I would be in a cell. I'm looking at this thing. Boy, this is horrible. These poor guys.
Yeah.
I don't know what.
God, I don't know how they could have lived like that.
I don't know how they could do that. What, that guy did like 10, 12 years in here? Oh, that's horrible.
And now when we go in there, you're like, hey, where's commissary? All right, where is the guard tower?
Exactly. I'm ready to lay in the bunk.
Where's visitation? Can we see where visitation is?
So he goes there. He's there with Al Capone. I'm sure that was an awkward conversation about the $5,000. What ends up happening is he fakes being sick,
right?
And he actually escapes from custody once. Not when he's in prison. Prior to that, he jumps bond. Then they recapture him. Then he comes back.
They call that escaping from custody. Like you're home and like
it's always.
I'm not going to court.
It's funny. Absconding ends up being escape in the newspapers. You know what I'm saying? Like they can't say absconding because nobody knows what absconding is.
He walked off.
Yeah. So they catch him. They put him on trial. Then he ends up saying, "Hey, look," he say, guilty." Then they send him to Alcatraz. He goes to Alcatraz. Shouldn't have gone to Alcatraz, by the way. But he went because he had absconded before, because it was there were multiple crimes that he'd committed. So he's like a tier 3 or something. Like he should have gone to like a low level camp, but they were worried about him.
Right.
So he goes there. He's there for I don't know how long, but eventually he ends up saying he's like, I'm in pain. I have medical. I need medical attention and whatever. That goes on for like a year or so. He's sick for like a year or so, and they think he's faking. I know what you're going to say. Wait a minute, you mean the BOP didn't take care of him?
Yes.
Medical?
Yeah, my fault.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking
that wouldn't happen.
Yeah, never.
So after a year or so, they transfer him to a medical facility, and he ends up dying. So he dies in custody.
That's all legends do.
Bernie Madoff died a few months ago.
Yes, all legends do that. Al Capone. What's the Teflon Don?
Teflon Don. Oh, you mean John Gotti?
John Gotti. I mean, all the legends die in custody.
Yeah. Well,
what's his name? Epstein.
Epstein. Yeah. Wait. What's the other guy? Lou Pearlman.
Lou Pearlman. That's right. That's
hey,
right.
Well, you know what we need to do? One of these, because I was doing research on con men, and I remember, like, when I saw this, like, I remember reading about this guy in prison about con men. This is a guy who created. This is back in like the 1800s or like the 1800s. He convinces all this royalty in Scotland and regular people too that there's a new country has been formed in like South America or something, and he starts selling land in South America and puts everybody on a boat, and they send multiple boats where they go to where's the Mosquito Coast? Is that in South America? I don't know, but I want to say South America. Where so they go from Europe to South America, they land, they drop them off. They're like, well, this is where this little country is supposed to be, and they drop them off, and of course they all get malaria, and like 80% of them die. I mean, it's just this guy he's responsible for 500 people dying on the shores of this fictitious country where he's made millions and millions. Anyway, they explain he's just like this ridiculous con man that's just despicable.
Back in the 1800s.
Yeah, you can't believe. Oh, they said when you looked at the when you looked at the plot maps and you looked at the brochures, and everything, they said he had this completely fictitious country that they said was amazing. Wow. And he's selling it to like Scottish or forget which country he's selling, but to like nobility, and they're buying it. They're getting on boats and they're going. He's like, and what's great is they get there and they die. Like, are you serious? I mean, and he gets caught several times.
He gets caught?
He gets caught. He's never really imprisoned. Like, he keeps kind of getting away with different things. You know,
well,
he's also
dead. I mean, that's
no, but some of them come back, but it's just horrible. It's horrible.
But go ahead.
So anyway,
I knew he should have tried that on Jesus. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Back to Victor. No politics, no religion. Okay. Back to Victor.
Okay.
All right. So Victor Lustig came up with. He had 10 rules.
Yes,
which I thought was funny.
Commandments.
Because, you know, Frank Abagnale has con man rules too, which are in my book. I actually list them in the book. Where
how's his different?
They're not. They're very similar to this.
That's what I was thinking. I kind of remember them.
Well, the difference is that that Frank Abagnale talks about. Well, you know what? It's actually no. Frank Abagnale. The only difference is he has one more where it's like it's research. You know, research every single facet of the crime. He doesn't say it. He doesn't say that here.
No.
So you want to read his rules because I'm horrible at reading.
It says number 1 is be a patient listener, meaning like don't assume anything, don't try to extract anything, and that probably is so you don't appear to be anxious.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So you don't give up like they don't feel like you're leading them somewhere.
Yeah, it's always easier to get money if you don't look. It's always easier to get money from people if you don't appear to need money.
Right. That's right.
Like I don't want your money. Like I mean, I can't tell you how many times people are trying to get me. Even now and back then, we're always trying to become partners with me or put up money. Or I've had people like, look, what could you do if I gave you like $10,000? It's like, are you trying to give me $10,000? But I didn't appear to need money.
Right.
I looked very legitimate. Like I meet all this criteria. Like, go ahead.
all day long.
All right, so that was.
I don't believe you're a patient listener.
I can be if it's to my benefit.
Okay, I'll buy that.
All right. 2.
All right. Okay, and never look bored. Come on. You try to say you never look bored? As soon as someone go, can I spend a minute talking about me?
All right.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Let's. All right. Number 3.
I'm counting it. Yeah.
Number 3.
All right. So, all right. Leave the mark to reveal their politics, then agree with them. So basically, you don't want to counter their position. You want to be able to stream with them. So you want to let them reveal what they think about the world and how it's going, and you want to be in total agreement.
Yeah, I mean that's how easy is that? It's like, oh, well, you know, what religion are you? You know, and back then religion was a big deal. So if they said
religion's the next one, but yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, or politics. You know, what do you? You know, I'm a Democrat, and then they start talking about that, and all you have to do is go. You are absolutely on point.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I agree. Yeah. Really, it's like I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah, it's just bonding. This is just bonding.
Yes.
So
and that's what his is. It's kind of like Well, I'll go through them first before I give an overall opinion.
So number
4 is let the mark reveal their religious views and then agree with them. And number 5 is be open. Now this is unique. Be open to discussing sex, but follow it up if the mark shows strong interest. So I imagine that's for women.
Well, I'm assuming that like if the guy's like, ooh, hey, check that chick out, or hey, ooh, don't, like. I don't get this because like in today's society, like it's not something you commonly talk to another guy openly. I guess some guys do, but like it's not like you're bringing it up. But I guess if he brings it up, like you
some
can
sexual
join in.
gesture or something. Is that
no? I'm
like
assuming
he sees like you said, he sees a hot
chick.
So then that's when you start talking about women are being hot.
Yeah.
So you see a woman, you just kind of glance. But if he goes, oh my God, look at that butt. I was just thinking the same thing.
Yeah. So you don't.
Boom,
I guess. So you don't seem crass, I guess. You know, be polite, be crass.
So you don't turn the mark off.
Illness.
All right. And that's another thing. Don't discuss illness unless the mark shows concern. So, So
don't complain about how my back hurts or this or that or go on and on unless you mention it and then he's like, oh, yeah, I have a back problem too. And then you can have some kind of like, to me, this is all like connection. Make a connection.
Correct. Don't pry into the mark's personal circumstances. Wait for them to reveal them to you.
Yeah.
Never brag to your mark. Let your importance become obvious. So, like that's almost bragging is not always boasting about what you have. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's about stretching out and letting them see your Rolex. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes it's about stretching out, letting them see your Rolex. Or a necklace on your neck, or revealing like this is a Dolce Gabbana. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's that comes up too. That's another one right here.
Never appear unkept. Take pride in your appearance.
Right.
So the bragging, letting your importance become obvious, it definitely has to be about letting them know that you have expensive things or expensive taste.
Right.
So.
But you can do that. Look, let's face it. You can. The guys, you always know the guys that have money, or they pull up in a nice car, but they never say, hey, check out my Porsche, or check out my, my Mercedes, or oh yeah, I just bought a new Mercedes. They don't say anything. People slowly start noticing. They notice he's wearing a Rolex. They notice that you slowly, if you're going to be spending kind of time with someone, seasoning that relationship, working them over, you don't want to say, oh bro, I'm doing good. I made $500,000 last year, or I'm making this. I own this company. I own this one. Like those guys, when they start telling me stuff like that, it's totally bragging. And I know, actually, I'm thinking about a guy that literally is very much bragging. Like, and he does have stuff. But he's constantly, well, I own this company, I own that. I'm thinking about opening another company. I'm doing this, and it's always like, it's odd.
Right.
So yeah, I would be more impressed if, when you invited me over, I walked in and you didn't say anything and let me, kind of figure it out. Yeah, yes. As it's going. To me, look, people that really have money, like they're not constantly bragging. I mean, there's always these Instagram guys. There's always these guys on YouTube who are making $20 million a month, and it's outrageous. But for the most part, people that really, Warren Buffett is not driving around in a $500,000, Lamborghini. He still lives in the same house he's lived in for like 40 some odd years with his wife. I mean, he's still driving an old, Chrysler or something. I mean,
right.
Bill Gates, same thing. These aren't flashy people. But you wouldn't have to spend much time with Bill Gates to realize, oh my God.
He's rich. And never get drunk. Always keep your wits about you. So meaning don't get in a position where you might say something that gives away your true intentions or
you get crazy and or you start behaving like someone who doesn't, like, look, if you've got money and if you're someone who's educated and has money, then you're not getting into barroom fights.
Right.
Like don't be someone that you want to hang out with, someone who's normal, someone who's not screaming and hollering, cussing at people. Like that's somebody I want to hang out with. You don't want to alienate yourself.
Correct.
And if you get drunk, people tend to alienate.
Correct.
I know people that get drunk that I don't want to hang out with you. Like I don't want to go anywhere. Why? Let's go out and this. It's like I actually like this guy, but
When he gets drunk,
It's like I can't be around you.
Yeah, you're kind of like, what is wrong? Yeah, you're right.
So so I can see that. Like all of these are endearing qualities. These are qualities to make a connection.
Well, and I think these are more, instead of the commandments of the con, it's kind of like more of the instructions. A commandment of the con would be like what you said, Abagnale, like do your research.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Know the possible outcomes. Keep the goal of the, what you're trying to obtain. Those are more commandments. These are more like
but all of them, they all say like he's known for the 10 commandments of the con. Like this is the list. That's what he's known for. I know you wouldn't say it like that, but same thing with Abagnale. His is very similar to this. Only the difference is it's
more instructive.
It's funny. In Abagnale, he probably just took this and condensed it into his own list. His list is shorter, but most of his is it's definitely about research. Like it's like research.
Right. It's kind of instructive. It's more. This is what you should be doing. This is kind of like this is how you should be acting.
Right. Well, keep in mind too. That's the whole thing. Like, of course, this guy is a con man.
Yes.
But if you think about it, that's why when like I always think, oh, well, I'm a fraudster, but I'm saying con man. But the truth is, he's a fraudster. Yeah. Think about it. The only con he had where he really went in and talked to you and people handed him money. Like, to me, a con man is somebody who just has a conversation with you, and they give you a story and you hand them a bunch of money. The only one he did that with was the producer one, where he's a producer.
Right.
Most of them had props. So he's more of a fraudster. He's got these other props, because that's me. I go in the bank. I've got a good story. I look the part, but I also have all the documents to back it up.
Right.
And that's why they'll say, oh, he's a fraudster. Well, it's still a con man. To me, fraudster is like a category. It's like a subcategory of, they're all con men. Scammers, con men.
See, a con man, I can convince you to give me money.
Right.
Right. A fraudster is like, I'm going to convince you that you owe me money, or that you are instructed to give me money. So I'm going to present something to make you think, I got the term I just said, you're obligated to give me money. Okay. A con man will convince you to willingly give him money, whereas a fraudster will make it look like you're obligated to give him money. Right. Because they present the documents. You know what I'm saying?
All right.
You disagree? Or
I do. Yeah, it's all kind of, it's semantics. Anyway, the point is that this was Victor Lustig.
Yes.
What did I say the first time? Lustig.
Lustig.
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
It's fine.
I forgive you.
All right. So so that's it. So what?
Give my goodbye smile.
If you like the video,
yeah.
So if you like the video, do us a favor and do me a favor and subscribe.
Yes.
And hit the like button.
Yeah.
And share the video and leave a comment and see ya.
Yeah. That was a lot of Matt.
A lot of what?
Matt.
What, me?
Yes.
Did I talk a lot more?
You talked a lot more, yeah.
Than you did?
Well, I kept, like, when I'd stop, you'd be like, what? And you look at me like, what? You're like, I'm talking. Don't interrupt.
Oh, I'm sorry. See, I don't even know I do it. I'm such a fucking...
Because, like, so many times I'm like, ooh, I want to say this. And I'm like, wait, he's going to slow down. He's going to slow down.
Oh, no, I'll never slow down. You have to just talk over me. You have to